here's some more examples of typecasting or casting between data types while we're at it. So let's go run just casting one here, okay? We'll go run this function here. And we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to show how, a data type is assigned implicitly by Python based on what we store in the variable. And then down here, we're going to explicitly cast these data types to string. X is already a string, so nothing really done there, but Y is an integer, it'll be converted to a string. Z is a float, it'll be converted to a string. And then we're going to use them in the print statement with the type method. So we'll look at the type method before, and we'll look at the type method after, and see how the data type changes based on what we do, okay? And I'm going to hit F5. All right, so notice here it's string, integer, float. Those were the implicit data types assigned by Python. And then when we explicitly typecast everything to a string, they were all string, string, string. Down here, string, 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 okay? And let's go to our next method. Next example here, casting 2, okay? So we're going to look at truncating variables when casting to integers. So I have two floats here. X and Y are both floats, all right? They have decimal values, so they would be implicitly cast as floats by Python, just based on the fact that they have decimal values. And we're going to use the type method. So casting from data type float to data type integer. All right, here we're going to display data types, and it will display the decimal value. It'll hold the decimal value because it's a float. But now we're going to typecast these floats to integers. Integers, they are useful when you don't have to hold a decimal value or a larger number because they consume less memory. But the problem is if I take a larger value number or a number with a decimal value, a float, and I typecast it to an integer, integer doesn't have the memory to store those extra values. So it's going to truncate or chop off or shave off the decimal value. All right, so again, look at my values, 42.7735. If I cast that float to an integer, it's going to shave off the decimal value and it'll just be 42. And I have 444.1325. But if I cast that float to an integer, then it's going to shave off, that decimal portion, the float portion, and it's only going to be the whole number value 444. So we'll do that. We'll display them to see the truncation happening, and we're going to call the type method again to verify that the data type has changed because we took that implicit cast and we made it an explicit cast here. So I'm going to hit F5 to run. All right, notice here we have the decimal portion of the value. And when we call the type method, it was implicitly assigned a data type of float by Python in order to hold that decimal value. But then we explicitly cast those floats to integers. And when we did, look at the value now. It can no longer hold the decimal value. So it only gives us the whole number value. So we lost precision. You have to be careful when you're explicitly typecasting one data type to another. In situations where you need to maintain precision, where you need the decimal number value or a high degree of accuracy, you don't want to accidentally truncate or lose the value. On the other hand, if you don't need that much precision, if you don't need to hold a decimal value, if a whole number will do, you can make your programs more efficient and save yourself a lot of memory and resources by using an integer instead of a float. And let's just take a look at our third example here. And I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen. And this is concatenating string data to floats and integers. So here implicitly, we set up a couple of integers. Python defines the data type. It's implicit. We're going to go call the type method. And then we're going to cast. In this case, X will be cast to an integer, so it's a string. And these are literal string values here. So if we call type, we'll display string. Now it's going to become an integer, and y is going to become a float. And then if I call the type method, let's see what data type it displays. Okay, so hit F5. All right. Now, implicitly up here, these were both declared and implicitly assigned a data type of string because they're in double quotes. So if we call the type method down here, look, it says string string. But when we explicitly typecast the strings to an integer and a float, see how the data type changes, integer and float. And notice how it added, just an empty 0 to the right of the decimal because it's a float.